should be very comfortable on the stage this evening because your grandfather was an impresario, wasn't he?
That's right.
9 years of age, you were at the Windmill Theatre in London. Your granny was a dancer.
I think if those of you who know what the windmill is like, it's not something I boast about.
Oh, well, let's leave it there and move on then, shall we? And you didn't follow that same path yourself, Brian. We heard there you worked in finance all your life, but you were a bit of an adventurer in your early 20s. Newly married, you went to Paris. In fact, that's where the first of your 4 children was born. What was it like moving to Paris then?
Well, the first of our 4 children is actually sitting over there at the moment. She's changed in the last 50 years. It was wonderful. It was a wonderful way to start life. You started off on your own. You had no in-laws. I've got to be careful of any in-laws. No, I don't. But it was a good life, great life.
And you were one of the first, or the first employee of Onboard Banyan.
Yes. I'm very proud of that, actually, because I was followed by a young chap who was also a schoolmate of mine, Tony O'Reilly. And I boast that I got there first, but he did rather better.
And you ended up later on going to Saudi Arabia and living there too. See, the adventurous spirit keeps going.
Yes, the big advantage of Saudi Arabia was that it paid extraordinarily well and there was no tax. What I actually had to do with it was quite irrelevant with that sort of a scene. It was very interesting because it was a chance for my wife and I to just be on our own. We had reared 4 children, all of whom have emigrated, except our eldest, who's come back home again. And we wanted some time on our own. And no better place than Saudi Arabia to be on your own. By God, are you on your own? But it was good.
But you said, Brian, that being in Saudi Arabia and surrounded by the language that you didn't understand in a different culture was quite confusing at times. And there might be some parallels between that experience and some confusion you experience now. Is that right?
That's a very interesting comparison. It is really, I hadn't thought of that through like that. Yes, when I went to Saudi first, I was very frightened by the environment. I was frightened by the language. I was frightened by the threat of jail if I did the wrong thing, and there was no drink. So it was a tough life. But I got used to it. Using the comparison of being diagnosed with dementia is very interesting because the diagnosis is frightening. There's very little you can do about it. You just have to live with it and organise your life around it and do the best you can and don't let it get you down. And that was very much what I did in Saudi. So I don't like to compare Saudi with having dementia, but that just...
No, we won't do that. But you mentioned there your diagnosis. So tell me about the diagnosis and how you felt when that diagnosis was made.
Terrified. Absolutely terrified. I'd make a comment, actually, that my doctor, who was very good and very kind and has been a friend most of my life, did exactly what all the other people in the medical profession that I've met did. They diagnose that you have dementia. They tell you you've got dementia. And my doctor said to me, make sure you get your affairs in order. Now, the only time that anybody ever said that to, I heard was for somebody who was dying. And it was, I thought, a very heartless way of breaking the news. I went home. There was no support because none of us knew anything. I didn't know anything. The kids were all away. My wife didn't know anything. So it was not easy. So I didn't major on it because she was very ill at the time, and that was the way it went. So accepting that I had dementia was difficult. But once I had accepted it and taken it on board, I was then able to look around the place to find out who could help me. And quite honestly, as I said earlier on, there was very little. Doctors tell you, yes, we know, it's inevitable and that's the way it goes. But I found some very, very good friends in the Dementia Society. They gave me a hope that I could live a normal life. Now, maybe the life I live now is not normal, but I'm very happy with it. So I think that what the society is doing is absolutely magnificent. You give people hope. And if more members of the medical profession could refer people to you, rather than just say, go on your way and don't buy any long-playing records. I shouldn't really be facetious about it. It's too serious. But it is frightening when you are diagnosed as having something which is frightening. You can find nobody to help. There's nobody to talk to. Your doctor is dismissive. There's nothing he can do. So that what this society is doing is magnificent. It really is fantastic. And I don't know whether there's anything I can do to help, but anything I can do, I will do. And any fundraising, if necessary.
Well, you're helping Brian by talking to this evening, and I know everybody listening will be appreciative of that. But you said before that on diagnosis, you didn't want to end up sitting in a corner doing nothing.
No.
You've plenty of life to live.
Thank you.
You told me that before. But you do have some challenges.
Yes.
And then you put strategies in place to help with some of those challenges.
Yes.
So what about your pen and paper, for example? You write everything down, don't you?
Unfortunately, my daughter's in the audience. But the idea behind it is to write everything down, to have a notebook that you write. You get a phone call, write it down, or before you've walked away from the phone itself, you will have forgotten who rang. Now, I have a notebook. In fact, I have 2 or 3 notebooks. I write things down and then lose the notebook. I wish actually that she was not in the audience, because she's my greatest critic for not writing things down. I do write them down, but as I say, I then lose the notebook, which is a great help. I think if you train yourself to write things down, train yourself not to lose the book, put it in your pocket or something like that, because otherwise it is frightening. It's terrifying for those of you who have maybe got the onset of dementia. The fear that you're going to forget things is tremendous. I've lived in Dublin all my life, well, except when I was abroad, and I find I don't drive into town anymore. Why? Because I drive down Leeson Street, get into Stephen's Green, and I'm then lost. Now, it is not just because they've buggered around with all the traffic signs, but there is a fear that I don't know what I'm doing. Now, it's fairly well squashed. Now, I go around Mount Marion, I'm very happy. I can drive around there, I can drive down to Dunleary, I know where I am. But if I go away from that and try something new, I can't do it. And that was a rather terrifying realization, and I had to come to terms with that. Now, I think I have come to terms with that. My daughter would probably disagree, but then she's not always right. So it's getting to grips with the fear.
And in relation to the driving, Brian, you said that you're happy driving around where you live. I know that you won't drive everywhere, but that if you're going a short distance near home, then you will memorize, go straight, turn left, turn right, and you can do it.
Yes.
And there was a lovely story where you were on the M50 once.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do.
You called a taxi. Do you want to tell us about that?
Okay. I was driving out to Clontarf one time and drove into town. This is before I was diagnosed as having dementia. It was just on the horizon sort of thing. And I was still driving, so I drove into town, fine. Going to Clontarf, I suddenly look around me. I'd gone across the river, gone in under the tunnel, up out the other side, and I was halfway to the airport. I hadn't the faintest idea how to get to Clontarf from the airport. But there was a taxi passing, and I flagged him down, and I said, is the airport ahead? And he said, yeah. I said, I don't want to go there. I want to go to Clontarf. He said, yeah. And he told me how to go, and I said, look, stop. Will you drive to Clontarf? He said, sure, hop in. He said, no. Will you drive to Clontarf, and I'll follow you? He said, what's the point of that? He said, I'm not bloody leaving the car at the side of the road here and drive off to Clontarf, get another taxi to come back and collect the car. So he drove off, and I paid him. And he said, do you mind if I use this story? I think it's the greatest bit of joke I've ever been paid, to drive from the airport to Clontarf with a car following me, perfectly good car, and getting paid for it. But to me, it made a lot of sense, and it still does. It made no sense to leave the car at the side of the road, get a taxi out, pay him, get another taxi back, pay him again, and probably find the car has been vandalised anyway.
Yeah, I think that's what we call resourcefulness, and there's plenty of that there. And what about telling your friends, Brian? How does that go? I know you certainly, obviously, we can tell Brian isn't the hiding type of guy, but tell me about telling your friends and talking about the challenges you have with them.
It wasn't easy. It would be easier now because dementia, through organisations like your own, have made it a more acceptable disease. 5 or 6 years ago, and that's all I've been diagnosed, it was something not quite nice. Mm-hmm. And also, you had nothing like this organisation. You had nobody to go to for comfort. You had nobody to go to for advice. Get your affairs in order is a great help. You know. And then what? You sit beside the fire and read a book and dribble in your new good tie? No. It's to I am still me. I use that phrase advisedly because somebody used it once very early on. And I think that is one of the keynote things that I have learned from this association. I am still me, and if I have respect for myself, and I behave reasonably and rationally and as best I can, and accept that I have a stinking memory, that I'm going to forget things, I'm going to offend people, but I'll do my best. But I am still me. And I think that certainly in a lot of my friends, they have taken that on board, and they are still my friends, and I still go out and I still enjoy life with them, we have meals with them. Whereas I think if I'd accepted the medical advice, I'd have sat in a corner and dribbled quietly till I was taken away in a box. And if this organisation does anything, and it gives people hope, and it gives people the realization that there is a life with dementia. Okay, it's not the same life, and it's not going to improve, but it is a life. And you have friends, and people will help you. And if people realize you have dementia, they're willing to help if you show them how to help. I haven't found anybody yet who regarded anything disgraceful or, that you should be embarrassed, you should be ashamed. I'm not. I'm still me. And in here is me. And I like to be respected. I like to enjoy people's company. I have a bad memory. I forget things. Yes, I have. And I'm now, 85 years of age. I would probably forget things anyway. And
so your overriding message, Brian, is that you're still you.
My overriding message, without the slightest doubt, Tina, is I'm still me. If you still have faith in yourself, you believe in yourself, you know you'll make mistakes. Even if you don't have dementia, you should do that, because if you can't drive a car or you don't have confidence in yourself, people are not going to help you have confidence, or maybe your family will. But the average Joe Soap, the friends you'll meet, if you are ashamed of yourself, they'll pick that up. If you're not ashamed of yourself, and I'm not, I do my best. I forget things. And certainly amongst my friends, they have been brilliant. They've been absolutely brilliant. They make a joke with the fact that I have dementia when I genuinely forget things. It's no help.
Well, you have been brilliant tonight, Brian Doyle. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.